My name is Julianne Lark. I'm a member of St. Martin of Tours Episcopal Church in Kalamazoo, Michigan. One of the greatest ministry needs in our local context is healing the trauma left behind by COVID-19. Have you seen those photos of Chernobyl, where the radiation came so fast that the school books were still on the desks from the day the residents were evacuated? Sometimes that is how it feels in our parish as we return after COVID. Like every parish, COVID came suddenly. We had to drop everything and adapt very quickly. We are somewhat back to normal, but it feels like some part of normal doesn't exist anymore. The COVID case numbers are better in August, but they spiked in our county in June. That jagged graph has defined our life together since that night in Lent of 2020, when we got the letter from the bishop that instructed us to close the church for 3 weeks. It seemed unthinkable that we wouldn't gather for Easter, but we had no imagination yet for how unthinkable things were to come. We quarantined, we kept in touch, we sewed masks, we prayed for the sick and first responders and the people out of work. We watched the National Cathedral, we learned how to Zoom. We shaped our cell phones into digital video capture devices and hopped on platforms. We pre-recorded, we streamed, we gathered outdoors on the lawn. We even shared a Thanksgiving meal in our own homes, logged on to Zoom for table conversation. We met in the headlights of our cars in the parking lot for Christmas Eve to sing Silent Night. We figured out who wanted to be online but wasn't, and who could be or didn't have equipment. We didn't hug. For a while we didn't sing. We still don't eat sitting next to each other indoors. But we didn't spread COVID at church. We also stayed home from diocesan convention because there were no hybrid options. We waited to bury people until it was safer to gather. And we were constantly checking to make sure no one was left behind or left out. We have new members that found us online. We've kept Sunday school, book studies, vesture meetings, and the preaching group running online, as well as daily morning prayer in Compline shared with a neighboring parish via Zoom. After the initial shock, dismay, and momentary sense of helplessness, we banded together, we innovated, we created, we crawled under and over and through obstacles to figure things out. This was a disruption of normal, larger than anything anyone had experienced unless they were old enough to have lived through World War II. As responses to sudden onset catastrophe go, I think we would earn an A. But where are we now? Like many parishes, our greatest need is to know how to find our new normal. The current COVID case numbers have improved recently, but our parish is full of vulnerable people by age and health. Some people are tired of masks and social distancing. Others are clear that if we don't continue precautions, they won't be able to attend at all. Everyone would like to go back to having a normal potluck or soup supper. Some people are tired and frustrated that things that we hold dear are suspended or may never return. We are committed to keeping our precautions until it is safe for the most vulnerable among us. The greatest need for our local context is how to continue to not just keep safe and survive, but to move ahead, be creative, break new ground, and continue to live out the gospel with joy and faithfulness. To me, it feels very much like the parish has group PTSD from the experience of the pandemic. We've missed so many of each other's special events, weddings, funerals, birthdays, graduations, as well as the just common time activities. How do we maintain diligence and also be spontaneous? How can we deepen our relationships with one another when we don't share the little s type of sacraments of coffee hour, visiting one another's homes, and passing the peace with arms wide open? If we consider what we've experienced as a parish as trauma, we do have some possible approaches that will help. At the most basic level, healing trauma requires that we be listened to and heard, believed, and responded to appropriately. We can listen and validate one another's experiences while being careful not to assume that we all had the same experience of the pandemic. Listening to one another's experiences is something we as a church can do for one another as well as for the world to facilitate healing from the trauma of COVID-19.